We're here for the creditors meeting for case number 19-23178, Shoppingtown Mall NY LLC. It is November 6, 2019 at 10 o'clock. My name is Larry Walquist. I'm an attorney with the Department of Justice, Office of the US Trustee, and I'll be conducting the meeting today. Full truth subject to the penalty of perjury.
I do.
Thank you. Can you state your name for the record, please?
Shawl, middle initial L, Pryor, Pryor.
All right, so Mr. Pryor, am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay, and what is your position with the debtor?
Chief Operating Officer.
Okay. And have you been authorized to testify on the debtor's behalf?
Yes.
Counsel, you want to state your name?
Mark Lindsay, Bernstein Berkeley, counsel for the debtor.
All right, thank you. All right, so what we're going to do today is I'm going to ask you some questions. I have some standard questions, and then creditors want to ask questions, and they'll come up and ask questions, all right?
Yes.
Before we do that, why don't we just have you tell me a little bit about the case, about the debtor, and the kind of business that the debtor does.
The debtor is in the commercial real estate business, the acquisition of commercial real estate, shopping centers, office buildings, other assets that are commercial real estate related. They primarily buy underperforming assets.
Okay, so the debtor...
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Just to make clear. Yeah. We're talking about this debtor, which
Shoppingtown,
is just the mall.
Shoppingtown Mall, yes.
Right. We're talking about this debtor, which is
Shoppingtown,
just the mall.
Shoppingtown Mall, yes.
Right. Not
Right.
the...
Right, I understand you
Yes.
basically operate several different
Correct.
entities.
Yes.
But this debtor in particular, is it basically a holding company?
So this debtor right here, Shoppingtown Mall, owns the Hughes, New York, or DeWitt, New York.
And it just holds the asset.
Correct.
Does it do anything other than that?
No.
Okay. And then what was the reason that the debtor needed to file bankruptcy?
There was an issue with the taxing authority where there was the potential threat of from the debtor due to a tax dispute.
Okay. And has the debtor lost tenants in the mall? Is there a decrease in revenue?
The debtor has continued to lose, since acquisition and the tax issue, the debtor has continued to lose tenants. And since acquisition and the tax issue, the debtor has continued to lose tenants in this shopping mall.
Okay. All right, how long has the debtor been operating?
Debtor's been operating since 2013.
Okay. And that's when it purchased the
Yes.
the mall?
Correct.
So it was formed for the express purpose of holding the mall, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Has the debtor ever filed bankruptcy before?
No.
Are there any personal bankruptcies from the insiders of the debtor, any officers or equity shareholders?
Not to my knowledge.
And who does the debtor have insurance with?
The Liberty Mutual or Travelers.
All right. And I know we have got copies of this. Are all of the premiums current?
Yes.
And the debtor obtained authorization to use its existing bank accounts, is that correct?
Correct.
And who were those with?
Chase.
Who were those with?
Chase.
And the debtor is operating right now, correct?
Yes.
All right. Are there any employees?
Yes.
And how many are there?
Approximately
How many are there?
6 employees.
Okay. And where are they located? Are they here local or are they out of town?
The employees are all in DeWitt, Syracuse area.
Okay. Are you local or do you
My office is in there.
from Atlanta? Okay. And are all the wages of the employees current?
Yes.
Are all post-petition taxes current?
No.
And which ones are not?
The taxes that are coming up are not paid, correct?
Or are they delinquent?
I don't know that they're delinquent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you check on that?
Sure.
Because do you understand that post-petition taxes have to stay current?
Correct.
And if they're not, that could be a cause for conversion or dismissal of the case.
Okay.
So that's a question mark then. And what was the year of the last file? That's a question mark then. And what was the year of the last filed tax return of the debtor?
It would be 2017.
And is a copy of the return that was provided to our office a true and correct copy of that?
Yes.
Is there a retirement plan for any of the employees?
No.
Are there any insiders that are on the payroll?
No.
So do you receive a salary then?
Yes.
And is that from the debtor or from another entity?
From another entity.
Who do you get paid?
I have a very broad scope of work, so I get paid by Moonbeam Leasing and Management, Moonbeam Capital Investments, and my wife knows better than me, the others.
Okay, so even though you are the chief operating officer, of the debtor, you don't get paid by the debtor.
Correct.
You get paid by Moonbeam?
Leasing and Management.
Okay. Now, does Moonbeam have a ownership interest in the debtor at all?
No.
Does the debtor have an ownership interest in Moonbeam?
No.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking at the Statement of Financial Affairs, number 29. I just want to make sure I understand the relationship. So Moonbeam Equities 11, LLC, was the owner of the debtor until 2018, is that right?
Yes.
And then the debtor sold it, Moonbeam sold it to who?
It was sold to Beacon Commercial and AT Realty.
Okay. All right, I'll have a few more questions about that when we get to it. All right, do you get any other perks for running the debtor, company car, trips, that sort of thing?
Nothing.
Okay. All right, I'm going to ask you a series of yes/no questions. Schedules in the Statement of Financial Affairs?
Yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, is the information contained in the petition schedules and Statement of Financial Affairs true and correct?
Yes.
And who signed the petition schedules and Statement of Financial Affairs? And who is he?
President.
Were you present when he signed those?
No.
But you have reviewed these documents yourself?
Yes.
Are all of the debtor's assets identified in the schedules? Are all of the debtor's assets identified in the schedules?
Yes.
Are all of the creditors listed?
Yes.
Are there any errors or omissions that you need to bring to my attention today?
Not to the best of my knowledge.
Do you understand the requirements of the Chapter 11 guidelines, which include the filing of monthly operating reports?
Yes.
And the payment of U.S. trustee quarterly fees?
Yes.
Now, since the bankruptcy was filed, has the debtor transferred or sold any assets outside the ordinary course of business?
No.
Paid any pre-petition creditors?
No.
Formed or acquired an interest in any other entity?
No.
Obtained any loans?
No.
All right, thank you. 2 documents. You have a copy of that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's turn to Schedule A/B. This is the real and personal property. It should be this is document number 21, page 2 of 52.
252. Gotcha.
Yeah, you don't need to
Oh, okay.
worry
Gotcha.
about that tab.
Okay, so there we go.
252.
Okay. And you see number 3 there, the checking and savings accounts?
Yes.
I think you need to flip it one more page.
One more page?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Citibank? Yep.
Yes. So that's the account that the debtor's using as the debtor in possession account, correct?
Correct.
And there was $5,000 when the debtor filed the petition. Do you know about how much is in the account now?
I do not.
Okay. Do you know about how much is in the account now?
I do
today?
not.
Okay. Do you have any idea if it would be more or less, or does it fluctuate wildly?
It would fluctuate.
Okay. Does it fluctuate a lot, or does it stay pretty consistent?
It could fluctuate between 3 and 10%, depending on tenants paying rents and things of that nature.
Okay. And I think there's only one tenant left. Is that right?
No, there's a couple tenants still.
There are a couple
yes.
tenants? Okay. And then there was a continuation sheet. Okay, so flip over to page 11 of 52. It's TD Bank and JP Morgan Chase, is that correct?
Correct.
And do you know how much are in those accounts?
I don't. It fluctuates as well.
Okay. So do you have check writing authority on these accounts?
I do not.
You have authority on these accounts?
I do not.
Yo, you do not. Okay, so who does?
I have approval of the invoices, and the check writing authority is with Alina, in the accounting department. Edward Skarloff and Alina process the invoices to be paid.
Okay, so Mr.
Process the invoices to be paid.
Okay, so Mr. Is it Skyloff?
Yes.
He's the one that writes the checks for the businesses.
Under the authority of Alina, it's auto checks.
Okay. Do you know why he didn't come to the creditors meeting today?
I do not. I think I was scheduled to attend the meeting of the day-to-day operations of the property.
Okay. All right, let's flip over to number 11. This is page 4. Looking at accounts receivable. So 11B says that there's basically $1.4 million, but 568 is doubtful. Just tell me why you think that 568,000 is doubtful or uncollectible.
Well, on the ARs, a lot of these.
Uncollectible.
Well, on the ARs, a lot of these tenants have. Some of this is old, and a lot of these tenants have moved on and/or filed bankruptcy.
Okay. So some of the tenants don't even exist anymore.
Correct.
Okay. All right, and then number 15. This is non-publicly traded stock and interest. So the debtor owns 100% of Shoppingtown Mall MGMT Management LLC. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what does
A subsidiary that processes payroll.
and that's all it does is the payroll?
That's all.
Now, Mark, do you know if the related entity report's been filed? I think I have a copy of that.
I believe that it would have been.
I think I have a copy of that.
I believe that it would have been filed.
That's the petition. I brought a copy.
Do not know off the top of my head.
Do you know if the related entity report's? Do you know if the related entity report's been filed? Do you know what that is?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, if it hasn't been filed, make sure it gets filed. Okay. So every debtor that owns another corporation or entity has to file a report under Rule 2015.3 that basically outlines that other entity. All right, let's go over to number 38. This is page 6. Actually, 39. This is office furniture. You see that? Office furniture valued at about $6,775. Just give me an estimate of how you reached that value.
We actually went through and looked at the resale values of each of those. Items.
Okay, so do you think this is a pretty good estimate then?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then the same question for 41.
We looked at what today's value would be for computers and portable air conditioning.
And then number 47 on the next page. These are 3 vehicles. Are those Blue Book values?
Yes, KB Blue Book values.
Thank you. And why did the debtor own these trucks? I'm just curious.
Maintenance vehicles.
All right, and then go to page 8. We're going to look at number 55. This is the real estate, which I forgot to ask. This address on Byberry Road, is that still accurate? Debtor hasn't moved the mall.
That's correct. the physical address. No, this is that's the physical address of the mall.
Oh, right. Sorry, I said the wrong one. Sorry. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the mall, then, the property you think is worth about $2 million. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, didn't the debtor buy it for $13 million?
13.5. Because it's based upon the taxes. We've had a horrible time trying to lease the property because tenants also, their rents include a portion of the taxes, which have, because the taxes have been overvalued, made the rents become much higher, which has which has hampered our ability to properly lease the property, which has created a decline in the Shoppingtown Mall, and that's a pinnacle property in the area, which has also caused the surrounding areas to decline since the acquisition in 2013.
So have you had an appraisal done on that
Yes.
property? And the appraisal came back at $2 million?
Plus or minus,
Okay. So not more than $3 million then?
not more than $3 million.
Okay. When was that appraisal done? Well, do you know the year?
I would say sometime in 2015, maybe.
2015. Can you get us a copy of that appraisal?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. All right, let's flip the page to Schedule D. So we're going to look at page 14. These are the secured creditors. Yeah, keep going. Oh, no, you went a little bit too far.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Yeah, Schedule D.
Okay.
Okay, so there's only 2 creditors listed. And so my only question is under the describe the lien, doesn't have anything listed. Just tell me what.
It was placed on the property by, is this the,
Yeah, number 2.1 is Mulroy Civic
Taxing
Center.
body.
Is that the taxing?
That's the county
Yeah, that's
taxing
county.
body.
The first one?
The first one,
Okay.
and the second is a municipal lien for, I believe,
Thank you. Any other secured creditors?
no,
So there's not a mortgage or anything though?
no.
All right, let's go to Schedule E/F. These are the unsecured creditors. And I have a question, and I have specific. But it looks like every single unsecured creditor is listed as contingent, unliquidated, and disputed. Is that accurate, or is that just a way that you fill these things out?
I believe at the time that they were filed, there were still questions remaining as to all creditors, and that's the reason that it was filled out that way. I would not say that is just generally how these are filed. It's probably not, looking back, it is probably not 100% accurate to say that each one of these is contingent, unliquidated, and disputed. Some of them certainly are, but I'm sure that if this schedule were to be amended.
Okay. I appreciate that. Do you agree with that there?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let's look at number 3.2. This is Alston and Bird. I assume those are attorney's fees?
That is correct.
Okay. And what was that? Those are attorney's fees?
That is correct.
Okay. And what was that for? I mean, was it a particular dispute or is that just a general?
It related to tax issues.
Okay. Is Alston Bird still assisting with that, or are they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Are they going to get hired in the bankruptcy estate?
I believe so.
Okay. All right, and then 3.3, Brinker Restaurant says 0. Do you know how much that claim is?
No.
And then 3.4 is Brown, Duke, and Fogel. Just tell me who they are.
Legal law firm.
And what were they doing?
As well, working on the tax.
So this is pre-petition tax issues.
Correct.
Okay. And then 3.7, Christian Cruz. It says 0. Just who is that and why is it 0?
Again, it's
It's a
personal injury claim, yeah.
Okay, so you don't know.
It's a
Personal injury claim, yeah.
Okay, so you don't know how much the claim's going to be.
That's correct.
Has the Mr. Cruz actually sued yet?
No.
Okay. And then 3.9, the county, I can't say that, Onondaga,
Onondaga.
New York, Herman. Do you know how much it is?
We don't.
What's going on with that? What is that for?
This is part of the bill, correct?
yes.
The what?
The tax bill, the tax issues.
Okay. All right.
So they're identified as potentially being unsecured. It's the same taxing body that is identified as a secured creditor.
Okay. And then 3.11, Desiree Yagan. Just who is that?
Another personal injury claim.
3.12, 3.12, Diane Gierke.
Same.
That's another PI claim.
Yes.
Are these like all related, or are they separate?
They're all separate over a
Are
course
they
of
slip
time.
and fall kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay. And then 3.13, Evelyn DeSantis,
Same.
PI.
PI, yes.
3.15, Imago Partners. Who are they?
Just it was one of the vendors that provided services.
Okay, what services did they provide?
We did a lot of consulting with the redevelopment plans.
Okay. And then 3.17 on the next page, Maxon and Maxon. Is that accounting?
That's accounting.
Okay.
That's accounting.
Okay. And then Maxon Legal Group.
That's a combination of the taxes, but also other legal issues that happen on the property.
So it seems like there's a lot spent on attorneys to. So it seems like there's a lot spent on attorneys to fight
Yes.
the tax issue.
It,
Is
it,
that correct?
you're correct.
Larry, the tax issue is the primary issue why this case is even here, and it's to be resolved in order for this mall to move forward in a fair and reasonable manner. That is the primary issue that the mall is facing.
Right. All right, 3.20, Marketing Gurus.
Development plans. and other marketing, property-related items.
And then 3.22, Michael and Shelley Cota. That's 0.
PI.
And then 3.323, and then 3.323, Moonbeam Leasing and Management for 1.1 million.
That's for leasing, management, consulting, and development services.
Now, does this Moonbeam have anything with the Moonbeam equities?
No,
So they're separate companies.
separate companies.
Okay. Do they have common ownership though? Those two?
No.
All right, let's go to 3.25, Sandy Patterson.
Again, PI.
And then 3.26, Shannon Tompkins.
PI.
All right, that's it on that. All right, let's go to Schedule G. These are the executory contracts. It's up. And I know there's quite a few listed. We're not going to go over all of them, but I noted there's 3 categories. You have service agreements, there's lease agreements, and there's license agreements. So the service agreements are those entities that are providing services, I assume?
Correct.
Is it going to reject all of those, or when it sells, or what? Or still deciding what to do?
Still deciding. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't think that we would commit to that today, but
Well, of course
the debtor's intention is not to sell this property, just to be
Okay.
clear. So, or after they're evaluated, that most, if not all, of these agreements will be necessary going forward. So,
Okay, so you think they'll be assumed then, possibly?
possibly.
Okay, so now what's the difference between the lease agreement and the license agreements?
The lease agreement is a long-term agreement that's made between the landlord, and the tenant. A license agreement is a short-term agreement. It gives the landlord a little more flexibility and relocation, termination, time period, and relocation, termination, time period. And in most cases, our licensed tenants come in for a short period of time just to see how the mall is doing and if they could make or have a profitable business. Most of your national tenants or long-term tenants already have a business plan and go into a long-term lease. So
Okay. All right, I don't have any other questions on G. Let's go to the Statement of Financial Affairs. That's on page 36. Okay, so the debtor lost about $500,000 between 17 and 18. Is that right?
correct.
And then, do you have a sense of how much you think the debtor's going to make by the end of this year?
I don't. I can give you a projected number at a later time.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it's a ballpark. Do you think it's going to be around 3.3s or going to be less than that?
It's going to be much less.
Okay. And that's because of the loss of tenants, is that right?
Correct. When we lose tenants, we still have to. When we lose tenants, we still have to provide services. So your expense category is somewhat stays stable, but your income category decreases.
All right, and then let's go to number 3. These are the payments or transfers to creditors within 90 days. Point 1 for Allied Universal. Just tell me what that was for.
Allied Universal, it provides security services.
And what about 3.2, Mr. Reuter?
Roto-Rooter was a payment made due to a large water.
The insurance. money that your debtor's collecting, right?
I have to verify that.
Okay. And then there's a continuation sheet on that.
Oh, page 50. 50, okay. Oh, page 50. 50, okay.
So we're looking at page 50. Number 3 is at the top. I just want to go over these briefly. Foxscapes Incorporated, did you see that?
Yes.
For $38,000. Tell me who they are and what that was. Tell me who they are and what that was for.
I have to verify that. I'm not for sure.
Okay. If you just figure out who that is and then let your counsel know.
Sure.
And then National Grid.
Utility.
And Property Restoration Incorporated for $198.
That was work related to a pipe bursting inside of one of the tenant spaces. One of the vacant spaces.
And then the town of DeWitt Water, I assume is a water bill.
Yes.
And U.S. Security Associates Incorporated.
Security services.
And U.S. Security Associates Incorporated.
Security services.
And Masonry Worker.
Masonry worker is that was due to a wall in the rear of the shopping center being repaired.
Okay, thank you.
And then Foxscape.
All right, thank you. So all of these individuals provided services, and these payments were for those services at that time.
Yes.
These aren't like old bills that you were paying.
No.
Just before you filed.
No, they're not.
Okay. All right, then let's go back to number 4. I'm looking at 4.1, Shoppingtown Mall Management. And this is the entity that the debtor owns, correct?
Yes.
And so Shoppingtown Mall Management is the entity that actually employs.
Which page were you on? Sorry.
We're on page 37. Actually employs.
Which page were you on? Sorry.
We're on page 37.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure I understand correctly. Shoppingtown Mall Management is the entity that employs the bulk of the employees that run the mall. Is that right?
Correct. The housekeeping, the receptionist, operations.
About how many employees do you think that is?
Between 6 and 8. It fluctuates.
Okay. So the employees that you told me about earlier are not the same people that work for Shoppingtown Mall?
They're the same people.
Oh, they are the same people?
Yes.
Okay. I need to note that. Okay, so does any employees then?
No.
Yeah, I thought we were going to have to clarify that.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't want to.
All right, no, that's fine. All right, and then 4.2, Moonbeam Leasing and Management Company. What was this payment company? What was this payment for?
What do we have?
4.2, sorry.
On the wrong page.
Oh,
Yeah, page 37.
oh, yeah, that's right. There we go. There we go.
So I'm Moonbeam Leasing and Management LLC. Just tell me what that fee was for.
That's property management and leasing.
Okay. So what exactly do they do for the debtor?
The operations of the property. They market and seek out potential tenants. And they look at redevelopment plans or trying to reconfigure the property for potential new tenants.
Okay, let's go to number 7. This is the next page 38. These are the legal actions. Let's just do a quick rundown. 7.1, just tell me what's going on with Shoppingtown Mall versus What's going on with Shoppingtown Mall versus the town of DeWitt?
DeWitt? Yeah.
Am I pronouncing that right?
DeWitt.
DeWitt?
I believe that's how it's pronounced, correct?
DeWitt, yeah.
Okay.
DeWitt.
All right, so just tell me what's going on with that.
It's my understanding that the tax city of DeWitt were paid to the city of DeWitt by the county. So the taxes were paid by the county to the city, and the county assumed.
Okay, so the debtor's being sued for taxes that's being disputed. It's on.
Or the appeals, I believe, of the tax assessments.
Okay.
And primarily, this is what the debtor's intentions are to proceed with these appeals in order to achieve fair assessments, and then translate that into this case and be able to actually pay the taxes that it owes, but based on new numbers.
Okay. So that's the heart of the case.
That's the heart of the case.
Okay. You agree with that, sir?
Yes.
All right. Sir?
Yes.
All right. And then is that the same thing for 7.2? Another tax?
Yeah,
That's
litigation.
correct, yes.
different years.
Yep. Oh, yeah, different years, yeah.
And then there was a continuation on page 50 and for the various years. Is that right?
Correct.
Any other lawsuits going on?
Not to my knowledge.
So none of those personal injury claimants have actually filed lawsuit yet then?
They have not.
Okay. They've just made, written oral demands sort of thing?
That is correct.
Okay, the number 18, this is page. Okay, the number 18, this is page 43. I just want to confirm. These are the closed financial accounts. So the debtor has not closed any. And then number 25 on page 45. These are other businesses, and the debtor listed Shoppingtown Mall Management LLC. Is there any other entity? Okay, and then let's go to number 28 on page 48. This is the debtor's officers and directors, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding. Operating officer, but you don't have any personal ownership of the debtor, correct?
Correct.
All right, and Mr. Edward Skyleroff is the manager and the president, but he does not own any of the debtor either, correct?
Correct.
And he doesn't receive a salary?
No.
Okay. And then AT Realty and then Beacon Commercial Limited each have a 50% interest, correct?
Correct.
And do you know who owns those two entities?
I don't.
All right. Do you get paid from either of them?
No.
Okay. And then do you get paid from either of them?
No.
Okay. And then do you know Mr. Skyleroff personally?
Yes.
You talk to him?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know why does he get paid by somebody else? Like, why is he president and he's not getting paid anything?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. So to your knowledge.
That is correct.
All right. And then 29, it looks like Moonbeam Equities, Roman numeral 11, LLC, was the original owner of the debtor, correct?
Correct.
And sold in 2018 to Beacon.
Correct.
And do you know why they sold?
I don't.
Now, does Steve Matskin have any relationship to AT Realty or Beacon Commercial?
None.
Do you know how much they sold it for? Do you know how much they sold it for?
I don't, but we can. I think it may have been a transfer of shares, but I can find and verify that for you.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. I appreciate that. All right, and then number 30, you've answered this, but I just want to make sure we're very clear on the record. These are payments or distributions given to, I just want to confirm that you've not received a salary or any other compensation within the last year from the debtor, correct?
Correct.
Right. And none of the other insiders, including Mr. Skyleroff, has not received anything of value. That's not just salary, but, draws or anything else from the debtor, or anything else from the debtor.
No.
Okay. All right, that's all my questions on that. All right, let's talk about where we're going to go from here. What steps has the debtor taken, will take from here? What steps has the debtor taken, will take in order to reorganize under Chapter 11?
We're currently have a proposal out, and we're working with or in communications with the Onondaga County officials to try to resolve this issue.
To hopefully reduce the tax liability?
To a reasonable value.
Yeah, and Larry, if I may, just so you would understand the disparity and the issue, this property is assessed at close to $40 million. And so the tax liability is extremely high, particularly considering not only what the debtor paid for the property, just 6 years ago, and the decline in the markets and the decline in the markets and the rental abilities that have decreased the value even further. So the tax liability, again, as you pointed out, is the primary issue, and it's clearly it's assessed at, we believe, times the actual value.
And you agree with that, sir?
Yes.
All right, and I assume the debtor is going to look to increase tenants, is that right?
That's correct. We are in the process and have been of creating some redevelopment plans.
And counsel mentioned earlier that the debtor's not looking to sell through operations?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a ballpark figure of when you think a plan could be filed? Or is that still pretty much up in the air?
It's a little bit up in the air. We certainly want to move this case as quickly as quickly as possible. But we may need to seek an extension, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
It is very dependent upon a resolution of the tax issues. Because the intent is to resolve those, whether by agreement with the taxing bodies or through a disposition of the appeals in New York, and then pay the taxes, both past due and current, particularly past due, through a plan of reorganization.
All right, so documents, I just need the 2015 appraisal. You answered the question about the $38,000. So then just how the sale from Moonbeam occurred, if that was a share transfer, if there was actual money exchanged.
Okay.
I believe it will be more in the form of a corporate restructuring type, but we'll confirm that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Do I have any creditors that would like to ask questions?
I just have a couple, if you don't mind.
Yeah, why don't you just come on up? You can bring your chair up, or you can stand, whatever you want. And if you just state your name and who you represent, and then just speak real loudly. And if you just state your name and who you represent, and then just speak real loudly so we get you on the recorder.
George Fitting for the County of Onondaga and the County of Onondaga Department of Water and Environment Protection. There's a few things. I apologize, I didn't have time to bring a binder this morning, but you mentioned that part of the are designated for the real property taxes. Is that correct?
No, actually, I said the part of the rent, when we calculate it in the leasing part, we take in consideration all of the potential expenses for the property, whether it's common area maintenance, whether it's insurance, it could be taxes, it could be marketing expenses, other expense calculation from a leasing standpoint of the number that we come up with for the rent.
Is there a provision in the lease that designates a portion of those rents for real property tax payment?
It depends on the lease. So some tenants may have a separate line item that classifies for taxes. Some may have a separate line item that classifies for taxes. Some tenants may not. Some tenants may have inside of the lease that it's a gross lease, and so all of the expenses are borne by the property owner. Each lease is different, and it's based upon how it's negotiated with the tenant.
What's your understanding of the percentage of leases that would have a line item provision for real property taxes?
At Shoppingtown Mall, it's much less because of the state of the tenancy. So the majority of the leases that are being done there are based upon gross numbers, or there are a large number of tenants occupancy of the shopping center, or are on license agreements, which are just the fixed amount that they pay to be at the centers.
When do those conversions take place?
What do
You said a lot of them converted based on the current occupancy, so when did the conversion from the previous lease agreement they were in take place approximately?
Well, you had to talk.
Well,
you had to talk about the specific tenant, so I couldn't answer that question without knowing which tenant, and then without looking at the lease. I look at probably about 3,000 leases, and each one of the leases are different, so I can't quote what the lease says without looking at the lease.
For the leases that do require real property tax payments, do you understand that payments were made with the funds collected from those tenants, or is there an accounting of how those funds were handled post-petition and pre-petition?
So you're saying if a tenant was required by lease to pay a certain amount of money, then distributed to the taxing body, or is it being held?
Yes.
I would assume that it's being held until this dispute is resolved.
Is there an accounting of that money that would be available?
I could be able to pull up and see which tenants have paid. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Austin and Bird, as well as Matskin Legal, were both retained to assist with property disputes, property tax disputes. You mentioned Austin and Bird. The debtor may plan to retain them within the bankruptcy case because they're still being used. Is Matskin still being used?
Matskin Legal Group?
Yes.
Yes. Matskin actually provides an advisory service and oversees the various different intricate details because they're not local, and Austin and Bird is local. Matskin Legal Group oversees the outside legal counsels that's hired.
So Austin Bird is more like local counsel for them in a way? Or is more like local counsel for them in a way?
In a way, yeah.
Okay.
Just to be clear,
Yes.
no one is providing any post-petition services that have not been approved.
Okay. Okay. Does the debtor intend to retain Matskin post-petition?
We haven't made that decision yet.
Okay. How does Matskin charge the debtor? Is it a entries broken out?
It's more of a retainage agreement, and again, Matskin Legal Services oversees more legal issues than the tax issue that is currently going on. So Matskin Legal Group is involved in whether it's a slip and fall or may go on on the property.
What kind of other issues, given that slip and fall cases, no one has actually filed suit that would justify $2 million in fees?
There could be a number of them. I would have to again look at and see what issues have happened. It could be bad debt collections, attorney happen. It could be bad debt collections, attorney letters for tenants that are currently in default. We've had a tremendous amount of tenants that since the issue arose with the taxes and some of the media that have refused to pay in rents. And so, again, those can be services that our in-house counsel may be sending letters or reviewing leases. Again, there's a number of different legal issues outside of the taxes that happen in the day-to-day operating of a.
Who decided to retain Matskin? How was the decision to retain Matskin Legal made?
We haven't made a decision to retain.
No, pre-petition.
Pre-petition. There were doing services for us in other areas, and so again.
Other entities, you mean?
No, in other areas with properties that I may have managed through the Moonbeam leasing and management.
Okay, so they're already providing services for other. They're already providing services to Moonbeam Leasing and Management. They're already providing services to Moonbeam Leasing and Management.
They have provided some services, correct.
When were they retained to provide services for the debtor?
I would have to look into that. I don't have that exact date.
Was there an engagement letter?
Possibly.
Last year, we didn't address, apologies, I don't have the page number, but what was the purpose of the payment of $752,000 to Moonbeam Equities 11 LLC within the past year?
Was that the one with the, let me see, let me look at that.
Do page number for Larry. Sorry.
You don't know, you don't.
Yeah, I
Just
don't know.
answer, you don't know.
I don't know.
So the property was purchased from Moonbeam, but then the debtor itself transferred $752,000 to was purchased from Moonbeam, but then the debtor itself transferred $752,000 to Moonbeam.
That was one of the questions that I was wanting to clarify.
You're not aware of anything like a business purpose or any circumstances?
To, again, the accounting department.
You said you have in-house counsel. Are they one of the 26 employees, or is that for another entity?
For another entity.
Okay, but they provide services for the debtor entity?
Through Moonbeam Legal. Matskin Legal.
The million in fees to Matskin and Matskin CPA, is that entity related to the Matskin legal group?
No,
So Matskin and Matskin CPA has nothing to do with Matskin Legal?
correct.
And what specific accounting services do they provide?
They provide all of the day-to-day property accounting, reviewing and analyzing the books, collection of rents.
And are they still providing services?
Yes,
Is the debtor planning to retain them?
to be determined.
Why was 3469 Erie listed as an unsecured creditor for $9.7 million in the petition?
You want to refer him to a specific, point him to a page?
Sorry, I'm not able to. It's okay if you can't answer that one. That was my last question.
Oh, okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I do have a couple more questions that I wanted to go over. In the check register that the debtor provided to our office, there was 3 payments. $79,000 to Moonbeam Equities on July 5th, 2019. $70,000 equities on July 5th, 2019. $70,000 on July 22nd to Moonbeam, and $110,000 on August 8th to Moonbeam Equities. And we had asked the debtor about that and received a response. Are you familiar with those? Were monies that were paying back Moonbeam because there had been some sort of a mix-up.
Right.
So let's just kind of go over that briefly. So, do you know why the debtor transferred that that money, which was a $210,000 to Moonbeam Equities?
I think in the beginning we had talked, I'm somewhat familiar with it. I was going to look into this in more detail and ensure that Lena, the property accountant, was able to get back a more detailed information. I didn't know that this wasn't sufficient with her response.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask you a couple questions. If you don't know the answers,
Sure.
then, you don't know.
Sure.
Then, you don't know. Now, the $210,000 was supposedly transferred to the debtor in error by Moonbeam. And do you have any idea why such an error would occur or what the was?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know if there's any documentation of that transfer?
It should be.
Okay. So if there is, you can find that?
Yes.
Do you know why the transfers back to Moonbeam were done in 3 separate transactions instead of just a $210,000 back?
I don't know.
Transfers to Moonbeam predates the transfer from Moonbeam to the debtor?
I don't know.
Okay, I guess that's all my questions on that now. But you'll look into the...
Yeah, I'll drill down into Lena's answer was insufficient, so I'll find out more information.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. All right, I don't have any other questions. Any other creditors want to ask questions? No? All right, do you want to add anything else?
No more questions.